Hey everybody, it's Julianne Meyer. I am back again, and I have a very special guest with me today. His name is Andy Mayhew, and he is so amazing. I've known him for actually quite a while now, and I thought I knew a lot about nutrition, but this man, he knows a lot more than I do, and I'm so excited to have him join us today. We'll be right back. There's just something about the music in that thing that always gets me going. I'm like in the background in the green room, just dancing around every single time, I swear. Anyway, I want to bring Andy out. He is with every founder of Everyday Nutrition. And without further ado, hey, Andy, how's it going?
Hi, Julianne. How are you?
So good. I'm so glad you're here with us today, able to join us. You're in California, right?
Yeah. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area.
That's right. Okay, so you're near my. I don't know why I didn't remember that. Anyway, yeah, it's been kind of crazy weather-wise with the fires. They're under control down here now, but sometimes it's like a little. Anyway,
Yeah.
enough about me and enough about weather. Let's talk about you. Not everybody is as familiar with you as I am, and I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and how you got started on your own wellness journey.
Sure. Well, first, I want to thank you for bringing me on and allowing me to speak to to the people watching the show. I really enjoy the work that you do and the effort that you're making to try to, change the world one person at a time. My journey started probably the same as yours and anybody else that gets in the health and wellness industry through like a personal experience. I was working at a job where I was working long hours, like, trying to provide for my family, trying to do more, trying to buy a home, the American dream, what everybody's told they need to do, right? Put your head down and work. And I was doing so much that I started burning myself out and I got sick. And I got so sick that I actually thought I was going to have to go into the hospital and I was going to have like this nervous breakdown because of what was going on in my body. And I needed something more. I knew I couldn't continue this path of the work regimen that I was on and that it was going to really break me down in the end. So I started looking into things that I could do. And I was always interested in how things worked. Like I like to play with mechanics and electronics and build things when I was a kid. And I got into, fitness when I was younger and learning how, one exercise might change your body or change the way your strength happens in a certain way. And I just wanted to learn more. And I happened to be working for a food company at the time, and they were, more on the natural side of food products. And so I just, started getting immersed into this natural food industry. And it really excited me. I loved to cook. I loved to bake at the time. And the thing that really started it off, and I can remember this exact day, it was only, I'd say maybe 6 months to a year after I had gotten hired onto this company. Mm-hmm. And the president of the company had a nutritionist. And he wanted her to come into the office and just speak to us about nutrition. So we came in there and we were a really small company at that point. And she talked to us about 45 minutes and it was interesting. And, she gave us some green juice and we drank it and, we thought it tasted gross and all this kind of stuff. But she had a few books laid out on the table. And after it was over and people were talking to her, I was looking at one of the books and it was a kid's book. It was written, as like a children's book, but it was about why dairy might not be healthy for humans. And I was just looking through it because it was animated. And she walked up to me and she said, "Do you drink milk?" And I was like, "Yeah, I drink milk. I drink a lot of milk." And she said, "Well, do you ever have any congestion or anything like that?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, all the time." My whole life, as long as I could remember, I could only ever breathe out of one side of my nostril. And it would switch back and forth. So it wasn't like it was only the right side or only the left side. It would switch throughout the day and it drove me nuts. and I had this post-nasal drip that wouldn't quit, and I was constantly having to clear my throat every couple of minutes. It was just annoying. But I just thought, hey, that's just me. That's, my genetics. That's how it was. And she said, well, why don't you stop, drinking milk for a week and see what happens. And I had to like wrap that idea around my head because, I mean, this is a guy that used to drink chocolate milk for lunch. That was my lunch, was chocolate milk and a candy bar. And that was my, sense of health back then. Yeah, no kidding. Talk about a headache. So I took it as a challenge. I said, I'll try it. And so I went to Trader Joe's and I must have bought every alternative milk they had on the shelf. And I came home with 2 bags of like quarts of, soy milk and almond milk and all this kind of stuff. In 2 days, Julianne, my sinuses cleared up 100%.
It's amazing.
I could not believe it. I could not believe it that the whole time it was literally right under my nose. And just because I didn't know, I didn't have the power to change it.
Yes.
So like the name of this show, Own Your Wellness, I didn't know how to own my wellness. And so I was just hooked. From there, I wanted to know the next thing that I was going through physically or health-wise that I didn't need to.
Yes.
And eventually that led me going to school. I ended up going to night school while I was working that crazy job because I want to know how things work. I did a little dabbling and read books and looked on the internet and talked to the people in the R&D lab at my job. But I was only getting, little bits and pieces here, kind of like when you go on the internet and try to search for something.
Yes.
And I said, I need the whole circle. So I went and found a good in-class program, signed up for them, did 2 years of schooling. And it was such an awesome experience because I wanted to tell people, I wanted to let the world know, you don't have to feel this way. This is not your doom.
Exactly. Something that you said that I really want to touch on because I noticed this with my clients too is, you said you had to wrap your head around no milk. Yet if that meant, it's so funny to me because I'm the same way. It's like, if that's all it would take for me to solve this problem I've had my entire life, why wouldn't I for 1 week? What's that addiction about? Because wouldn't you just give that up for 1 week?
Yeah, but remember though, this was before I knew that it could have had an effect on me.
Oh yeah, no,
So
I know.
with your background, all about addiction and everything. I mean, the mind just can't even go there. It can't even get to the point to where you can comprehend that this actually will work.
Yeah.
And so getting over that mental hurdle is the hardest part for all of us when we're trying to make a change or do something that we're not comfortable with.
That's true because I was actually on a call with John Asaraf last night. Secret. I don't know if you know who he is. He's been in a ton of movies, Larry King Live, you name it. And anyway, when he's a brain person now, he teaches about the brain and he does this thing called inner size. He wrote a book about it. Anyway, his whole thing is like our brain wants to keep us safe and it wants to keep us comfortable. And that's exactly what you're talking about. And I just love that because it's fascinating. It keeps us from doing the things that we actually want to do or have the goals that we have, keeps us from completing them because we don't want to be uncomfortable. We want to feel safe. And so I'm really glad that you actually did try to do that. Even, just trust it for 1 week. Just 1 week.
Yeah. I mean, it was me stepping out of my comfort zone. And I remember it was about, God, I want to say 4 or 5 years after that. We only saw that nutritionist one time, but I reached out to her and I called her and I thanked her and I kind of told her my story and it was just so neat being able to like take that thing full circle, But you're so right. We spend most of our lives like, the mouse stuck in the corner, looking around, making sure that nobody's going to hurt us in an effort to survive. So we make it to the next day. But in the process, we're not really happy.
No, definitely not. But it's the poison we know. So it feels more comfortable because we know it. And plus, like you said, you'd had that your whole life, one nostril, other nostril. So it's kind of like you get so used to it being there, it's not a big deal anymore until
Yeah.
it's actually gone, of course.
Yeah. Like the thorn in your foot, you just you just deal with it, you hop along, and then eventually it comes out and you go, wow, I can't believe I dealt with that for that long. So that's like been the the foundation of the program that I've built up over the years. I mean, you go to school and you learn kind of nuts and bolts of like biology and how the body works and how it reacts to food and all the chemical interactions, but you really don't learn how that relates to like real life, like in
Yeah.
people, and
Yeah.
what their struggles are, and what the challenges are, and everything. So when you first get out of school, you're all gung-ho, you're ready, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to help everybody, I'm going to write these great meal plans. And then you start working with people and you're like, well, how come it's not working? How come people aren't doing what I say they're to do? And I didn't know. I was green, and so it's I've been practicing for about 7 years now, and through that process, I've learned to help people kind of like lay this foundation of finding out really what's in their way and
Yeah.
helping them get out of the way, and along the way teaching them how to do this through a process of education and coaching about nutrition and diet, exercise, lifestyle, sleep, all the things that go into being a healthy person. But it's really getting over that mental mindset that we all deal with every day, so you can actually put something in action and have consistency with it. I mean, it's like anything else. Without consistency, it's just going to turn into one more failure on your list of failures.
Exactly. And then there goes your self-confidence. Every time you let yourself
Yeah,
down, self-confidence goes down too.
yeah.
Actually, there's something I wanted to touch on that I think it keeps popping into my head, so I must need to mention it. You and I had a conversation. Oh gosh, it's probably been at least a year ago.
Uh huh.
And you had said to me, and this is what something that I found fascinating that a lot of people don't understand. And I think you're actually the person that introduced the idea to me, is that just because a food is healthy doesn't mean it's good for you. Because you were
Hmm.
talking to me about certain foods, I can't even remember, maybe it was quinoa or something like that. And
Yeah.
it was something that's considered a really good food, healthy, but it doesn't go well with, say, your body. Like for me, I love tomatoes and avocado, but apparently
Hmm.
tomatoes and avocado don't agree with me. So, and I had
Yes.
to do this work to find out. And here I was wondering why I wasn't getting healthy, and
Hmm.
I just was eating things that weren't good for me.
And that's the risk we run when we go look at like the facts, the quote unquote facts, like what's healthy. Okay, a tomato is healthy. It has lycopene in it. It has vitamin C. It has polyphenols. It has all these things that are great for you. Okay, eat tomatoes. But maybe tomatoes aren't the right food for you right now.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something that your body is going to have a reaction to. Not I'm not speaking of a true allergy, an
Hmm.
anaphylactic allergy, but just something that it's sensitive to for one particular reason. And yeah, I had to find that out the hard way. That's one of the things I specialize in, is helping people identify the quote unquote healthy foods in their diet that are actually acting like kryptonite for them.
And I love that because I didn't even know that that was even, because there's so much information out there and all of it contradicts. I mean, it's with anything, especially nutrition. I mean, I've done so many nutrition certifications, and basically the answer is, well, there's this answer and there's this answer. There's this answer and there's this answer. So I love that
Yeah,
you listen to your clients and walk them through their process of figuring out what's right for their body, because just because something is good doesn't mean it is for you. Or
yeah,
and then there's
yeah,
other, like maybe you're never going to give up coffee. Well, okay, so maybe we need to work on less coffee or something.
sure.
Just depends. Like pick your poison a little bit. I mean, you can go way down the rabbit hole with health. At the end of the day, what are you actually going to keep up with and do and be happy with and still enjoy your life, is kind of how I feel about it. What
Yeah.
are your thoughts?
I like to help people start low and stay low.
Yes.
It's like aim low. Don't set yourself up to. I heard an acronym the other day. It was, instead of for fail, it was first attempt in learning.
Ooh,
How do you like that? Isn't that good? That's the best acronym I've heard for fail yet. First attempt in learning.
Did that come from Greg?
No,
Oh, surprise.
no, it came actually, but it came from an interview that he showed me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you knew where it was going to come from eventually. But yeah, what's the lowest common denominator?
Second, real quick. I'm talking Greg, and I just don't want I want the audience to know who I'm talking about. So
Oh,
it's
okay,
just
all right.
random name, Greg Drolet. He runs the Inspired Life School. Is that how you say
Inspired Life Academy.
Academy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Academy. Anyway, and that's how Andy and I met. Anyway, so I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't just like throw a name out there and not.
Yeah, sure. Like, who's this Greg guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you had asked, like, how do I meet people where they're at?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what you have to do is you have to find out where they're at first and then meet them there. Because my job is not to turn somebody into me or to make, or to have them eat my diet or your diet or anybody else's diet. It's to find out where they're at and then help them identify the roadblocks that are in their way of health. As you know, your body wants to be in health all the time. It's working 24 hours a day to keep you healthy, but there's a lot of barriers to that, particularly in our modern day society. There's a lot of things that are in the way of our health. So what I like to do is identify first the low-hanging fruit that somebody has. Like, let's say, for instance, they're not sleeping very well. And then I find out they're drinking coffee at 3, 4 in the afternoon. And if they're slow caffeine metabolizers, that means at midnight, they're going to have a half a cup of coffee in their bloodstream still.
Yeah.
And so that's something that, hey, that's kind of low hanging fruit. Let's titrate that. Let's bring that back. Let's, maybe change that from 5 to maybe 3 and then 2 and then 12 and then maybe 10 o'clock and then see how your sleep improves.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I want them to see some kind of results tied to the effort very quickly. So then, like you said, that confidence starts to build. It's just like training somebody. If they're new to strength training, you don't throw them under a rack with 300 pounds above them right away.
Yeah, and 7 days a week.
Yeah, it just, you're not used to that. Old habits die hard, So it's meeting people where they're at. It's helping them design the lifestyle that is going to turn them into the best version of themselves, which is not me. It's them and what they're looking for and what their unique challenges are in their life. And that's the fun part for me is just mixing it up with people and just learning about what their stories are, because everybody has a story.
Yeah, everybody does. And it's fascinating to me too. That's why I love doing this, because I get to talk to cool people like you and just, riff on different things. So
yeah.
I would love to talk about everyday nutrition. So wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about what you do with that and how that came about.
Sure. It's the name came about of something. I don't advertise, diets, that way. That's a bad word, in my business. Nobody likes diets. Everybody hates them. They don't work. They've done them a million times. They haven't, they might have gotten results and then they go back when they change the diet. So I didn't want something that revolved around, rigidity in diets. So I like the word every day because it's just something that you do every day.
Yes.
Life is what you do every day. There's no separation between the mind and the body. There's really no separation between work, like when I say work-life balance. I like to look at it more like life balance. It's just what you do, through your waking hours. Is it contributing positively to your health or negatively to your health? So everyday nutrition, and the nutrition side relates to food, and the basis of my program is founded in food. But if you think about what nutrition is, it's the vital nutrients that your body needs to thrive. And that's not just food.
No,
that's also, your community, your relationships, clean air and water, proper sleep, good exercise and movement, a sense exactly, having a good EQ and a peace of mind and goals and feel like you have a purpose. Those are all nutrition that feeds your body to be healthy and happy. And that's what I like to do with people. Now I'll work with somebody on like a one-off basis. In fact, I have somebody coming in tomorrow. We're going to sit down for an hour. We're going to do a quick diet evaluation. He just got diagnosed with diabetes, and I'm going to send him home with a lot of good things that he can do to start the process of reversing that diabetes. What I really get into is when, again, I can spend more time with somebody and dive into all of the little nooks and crannies about their lifestyle that are creating those barriers and help them to remove those barriers. Again, founded in food first, because I think it's the biggest influence we can have on our health, aside from how much water we drink, how clean the air is we breathe, and how much sleep we have. It's the biggest influence we have. It's what we put in our body and what creates that environment inside of our bloodstream that then creates the health that we experience every day.
Yes, and that's the thing that I just want to. I don't think that people really understand how amazing our bodies are and how
Man,
put them through, and they are still thriving even under conditions that are not optimal.
yeah,
I mean, I'm
yeah,
like, that I had a drinking problem at one point, but not everybody who watches knows that.
sure.
But the point is, like, even taking that out of the equation, the things that I've put in my body, I mean, I've had so much McDonald's and Pringles and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
surprise and like no sleep, studying all night, the whole thing. So it's amazing that I'm still alive and kicking. And I just think that, the breath has never failed me. I've always been able to breathe, whether I'm
Mm-hmm.
cognizant of it or not.
Yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of, that's,
We kind of take it for granted because the body is so resilient.
yeah.
And because it's resilient, we get this sense of being bulletproof, particularly when we're younger. We feel like nothing can hurt us because it's almost like nothing can hurt you when you're younger. But then as you get older and the decades start to turn over, you start to feel things a little differently. Things affect you a little differently. But yet the body still keeps going. The heart still keeps beating. Lungs still keep going up and down. So yes, you can exist for a long time under really drastic conditions, but are you going to thrive? Are you going to live?
Exactly.
And I don't want to just exist. I don't want to just make it to tomorrow.
Yeah.
I want to bust through the doors of tomorrow, ready to hit that sucker hard.
That's right. And because I spent a lot of time in survival and it's not a fun place to be, just like you
No,
said, just waiting for bed or waiting.
it's necessary sometimes.
Well, yeah,
Sure.
sometimes it is. It is. I mean, let's not sugarcoat things, but at the same time, you can make better choices. And then when you are going through things, it's a little bit easier to handle because you are in better shape to handle them, literally and figuratively. So,
Yeah.
I love that food is one way that we can change our chemistry quickly. And
Mhm.
it only takes one good chance or one good choice to get back on the right path again. So that's the one thing I love is that you can have a win every single day by
Oh,
just
yeah.
something like drinking more water, for example.
Yeah. Every meal is an opportunity to do it well. And
Yes.
you're right. Rigidity is not in my vocabulary. I am not rigid at all. I'm a food nerd by nature. I love cooking and eating and trying new foods and flavors. And, I'm not a military, um approach to diet and eating. Um, I want to have fun with it and I want people to have fun with it. And there are going to be foods that maybe aren't the best for me, but I'm going to indulge in them from time to time because of everything else that comes with it.
That's a
You
really
know,
good point. That's where I love when the Buddhists they have the philosophy of, like let's say they're vegetarians, but somebody made them some meat dish out of love, they'll eat it because of the intention behind the dish. It's like it's an experience,
hmm
an expression.
hmm
So I love that idea that, not being rigid, just, enjoying or, I always use birthday cake as an example.
yeah,
It's not about the cake, it's about celebrating someone. It's
yeah.
about being there and celebrating. So,
I had a
why
client one time that I work with quite a few women that are trying to get pregnant, through a fertility journey. And those ladies can be like really rigid because the doctors are telling them they have to be.
Yeah.
And she actually was on a wedding anniversary date with her husband
Hmm.
at dinner and wanted a glass of champagne, but would not let herself have it because she had to not drink alcohol and be perfect in this. And, you know, we worked on that a lot, saying, your body listens to what you are expressing as the environment around you.
Yeah.
So if you're feeding the fear wolf in your body, that fear wolf is going to eat up that love and comfort and security wolf all day long.
That's really well put. I love that because, and then there's the other fact of, all the stress hormones that you just released from being,
Yeah.
so I mean, I've been neurotic with my food, so I get it. I'm not
Oh,
putting,
same here. Yeah. Yeah.
but now the longer or the older I get and the more I know about it, I'm just like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, then
Mhm.
I'm going to enjoy it. So my boyfriend and I, every once in a while, we'll go get a donut. We don't just go get a donut. We'll go get one of those gourmet good ones and
There you
enjoy
go. Yeah.
every single bite.
Uh-huh.
We don't do
Uh-huh.
it every day
Yeah.
either, but we
And
truly
enjoy it.
enjoy it. Why
Yeah.
not?
I like to
So,
break foods up into like three categories. And they're your foundation foods, which is the foods you want to make the majority of your diet out of on a day basis. Then there's the very special occasion or when in Rome foods. And then there's not food for me right now.
yes.
Because if happens to be food that is kryptonite to you, yeah, you could indulge on that, but you're going to pay for it. And if you know you're going to pay for it, you might not do it. But then there's some foods that, hey, if you're in Paris, you better get your butt into one of those coffee shops and have a croissant.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like, if I go to Paris, I'm going to eat a croissant. I'm going to pay for that, but I'm not going to miss the experience,
Exactly. Exactly.
And it helps to kind of like, drop the pressure level down, bring the shoulders down a bit. Okay, this is not going to be, you've heard the term food is medicine, and there's a lot of truth in that. But when taken too far, it takes the fun out of it and it brings the stress level up. And I don't think that's healthy. I think it's actually, counterproductive to the whole idea of creating a healthy lifestyle.
It is because now you're in this emotional state where, and then plus you think about universal laws and what you attract what you're being and how you're feeling. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you really want that in your life. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say when everything's all fine and dandy, but why add that stress? Why add that into your life if you don't have to? It just, I mean,
Yeah.
the example I love to always use too is the rain is rain. Rain is just rain. So to a farmer who hasn't had, rain
Yep.
on the crops is fabulous. To the bride who has an outdoor wedding plan, it's the end of the world. But it's just rain. Just depends
Yeah.
on what meaning we attach to it. So I like
Yeah.
to think about that with food too.
Well, I have to say that, between the months of March and May,
Hmm.
I spent more time with my family and my young girls and my wife than I have ever had in my whole life. But looking at it through a different lens, it was
Hmm.
a pandemic. We were sheltered in place. We couldn't do anything. Our businesses were going, downhill. Yeah, there was a lot of bad things about it, but there was a silver lining to it as well. So you have to look at things like that, and it really depends on your perception. I think that's the biggest challenge in all of us have is what is the lens that we're viewing the world through, and
Hmm.
how narrow is that making our our experience of the world. So if we have this narrow viewpoint through our belief system and through our values, then we're only seeing 10% of a 360-degree world.
Exactly.
So by dropping down those barriers and being open to another perception, another way of thinking,
Hmm.
then you're going to see things you've never seen in your life. And that's
Exactly.
that's where I love taking people, for them to see how much they're actually leaving on the table.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
on a day-to-day basis, what did you miss today? How much health did you miss? how much connection did you miss? How much joy did you miss? How much challenge?
Yeah, because it's always been there.
It was there. It's there for the taking. It's in abundance. It's the difference between, an abundance mindset and a mindset of fear and and uh, and like, dwindling supply of whatever you're thinking of.
Exactly. Well, this seems like a really great time to take our commercial break, and I really want to drop into the idea of focus and being able to see more. So when we get back, we're going to touch on that, and we'll be right back after this. So, you guys, now you can understand why I love Andy. He is such a cool guy, and he just speaks nutrition in such a way that just anybody can understand it. And so, I'm really excited to talk about how we can get past those limiting beliefs and actually see what we can't see, which is actually what my conversation last night was a little bit about. So, I'm fascinated to keep that going. We'll be right back.
3, 2, 1, 0.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, welcome back. If you're just joining us now, I have Andy Mayhew as my special guest, and I just want to bring him back in so we can finish our conversation because I'm enjoying this, and I know you guys are too. Welcome back, Andy. Thank you again for being here with us today. I definitely appreciate you, and I miss our conversations. He and I used to talk about once a week, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I always appreciated the enthusiasm that you brought to the conversation. It always helped me to boost up my energy. So, yeah, we should start those things off again.
Yeah, I would love that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So you touched on one of my favorite subjects before we went to commercial break, and that was about what you can see and what you can't see. So one of the things is how did you become aware of things that you weren't aware of before? Are there certain things you can look for? Is it a feeling, or how do you do that? How do you do that with clients?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. You have to question your beliefs. That's not easy.
Nope.
Because our identity of ourselves, is wrapped up in our belief system. That's why our country is so polarized politically right now, because everybody is identifying with, a political party or a value system. So our beliefs are wrapped up in our values, and that creates our identity for ourselves. So for us to say, well, maybe the way that I'm thinking about this is not the right way or is wrong, then that's a mark on our, personal image of ourselves. And that's hard to take. So you have to have the courage to say, well, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a different way of looking at this. And then it's trying things. It's, again, if you just think of things, it's just daydreaming. If you focus on one thing, that's called a dream or a goal. if you write it down, now you're creating an action plan, but it doesn't work until you actually start doing it and being consistent with it. So for me, it was like trying to take milk out of my diet and try something else, and then actually seeing that I was wrong about my view of how healthy milk was for me.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to learn that you might not be right in everything that you believe in this world.
I love that. Something that works for me is when I'm like trying to achieve something, for example, and I'm not getting there and I'm doing all the right things and I'm just not getting there for whatever reason. That's when I start to ask myself questions like, does this belief serve me? And if it does, then I'll still take a look at it. But if it doesn't, I
Mhm.
definitely am going to take a look at it and then be like, okay, how can I reframe this? How can I think about this in a different way?
Yeah.
What can I do to, obviously I think that we can have pretty much anything we want in life if we get out of our own way.
Yeah. We can. I mean, we can, at least in this country of abundance that we're in.
Mhm.
You said, you touched on something about, how can I think about this in a different way? Um, One of the ways that I kind of started doing that was to, question whether that belief was still relevant.
Yes.
And so what that does is it kind of takes the pressure off of saying that I've been wrong this whole time. Like,
Exactly.
does this still serve me, is different from saying, does has this ever served me, or does
Yeah,
it, or is there a value to it? Because at some point there was a reason why you developed that belief system.
exactly.
And it probably happened a long time ago through whatever experience that you had, and it was just your mind building this protection for you, so that your ego didn't get hurt or your physical body didn't get hurt. And we have to question all of our beliefs to say, are you still valid in my life? Do you still have the same value now that you had before, when you were created in my subconscious?
Well, yeah, and something else that I was just thinking about right now is the idea of questioning where that belief came from.
Yeah,
Because, like thinking back, it's like, I don't know where I got that idea from. And if I can't figure that out, then why am I so steadfast in believing it?
yeah.
It's
It's
like
it's
that.
marketing. I mean, think of everything that shapes our world when we're young.
Yep.
There's the belief system in your household. There's the relationship that your parents had, or maybe you didn't have, or maybe it wasn't two parents together. It was whoever was in your household. There's religion. There's things that happened on the school playground. There's things that happen early in your life when you did start, trying to get out of your comfort zone, and maybe somebody pushed you back into it. So there's
Yeah.
all these things that can shape the way that we view the world, that we need to question. And that is only going to happen through a practice of self-discovery, where you make an intent to find out, where did all these beliefs come from, and are
Mhm.
they still valid? And I did that through a process of meditation and journaling, and just being very honest with myself and
Mhm.
vulnerable with my ego.
I think that that's a beautiful thing that you're saying because being vulnerable is actually very brave, and especially for a man to be able to say that, because you're just taught from basically birth, don't show your feelings,
Hmm.
wussy if you cry, all these
Yep.
things. So it makes it even harder for a man to get in touch with things that would make him be vulnerable. So I love that you are able to say that, especially on this platform, because you just saying that gives somebody else the permission to be able to do it themselves. And so that's powerful. And so thank you. I just want to make sure that I say thank you for that.
Sure. Well, men pride themselves on courage, and it's one of the most courageous things you can do, is to be vulnerable with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So it's a long road. It takes one step at a time.
It does.
Putting pen to paper, starting a small journal process. Things
Mhm.
like the 5 minute journal are a great. That was how I started journaling, was using that first, and then I got into longer format journaling, and little guided meditations like Headspace and Calm and stuff like that. Now I use a different one. And it's a practice that takes consistency. And with that, you start to crack into your own mind and find out, what are all these barriers? What are the beliefs? What do I believe about myself?
Yes.
Like, what is, about myself? And, some of your viewers might now be like, wait, I thought this guy was a nutritionist. Aren't we going to talk about food? But, we'll get around to that. I mean, I'm going to make sure that, everybody leaves home with something today, in regards to food and the diet and stuff. But I think for the most part, people know what a healthy diet looks like. Now, there's some people that, are in the vegan camp, some people that are in the keto camp and the paleo camp and all these different, sides of the fence that you can be on when it comes to diet. But everybody knows the difference between, okay, that looks like a healthy meal and that looks like an unhealthy meal.
Mm-hmm.
But where the rubber meets the road is, what are you going to eat and why?
Exactly. And why aren't you choosing the healthy thing?
Yeah.
That's what I've always said. Everybody has a lot of facts and, but that doesn't make us, just information doesn't make us do things.
No, no.
It's a mindset, and that's the thing that I love it. You mentioned that in particular, because that's my biggest thing is, ultimately, yes, there are definitely things that we need to do and ways that we can teach people to be healthier through food. And that is, what both you and I do. But typically, by the end of the day, what we're doing is helping people get through those roadblocks to actually do what they want to do and do what they know is healthy for them, instead of just knowing it and then eating something that they said that they weren't going to. So
yeah, it's all emotional. I'm sure you've heard Greg say this before, is people make decisions on emotions and they back it up with logic. So the facts are the logic that we're going to back up our decision. And we talk ourselves in and out of things all day long, unknowingly to ourselves, particularly when it comes to our food. And if you pay attention, you will catch yourself doing it. I catch myself doing it every single day, justifying why I can have more of something I like, or maybe a treat, or anything like that. We justify everything with this logic, but it's really an emotional decision that's happening there that we don't want to admit is kind of happening without us knowing. We want to act as humans like we are in total control of everything we do. Like every choice I make, I'm making it with full conscious and all mindfulness. Yeah. That is so much bull. Like 95% of the decisions we make are on autopilot every day.
It is, and we make the same decisions every day because it becomes part of a neural pathway, and it's just automatic. And then, just think about how many times if you've driven home and you all of a sudden are in your driveway, it's like, How did I get here?
I used to do that over an hour and a half long commute. I would leave work because when I was working that crazy job, I worked 60 miles away from my house, and it would take me an hour and a half, 2 hours to get home. And I would literally leave the depot where I worked at and drive home and pull up to my house and have no memory of how I even got there. Yeah. And was I conscious at all on that? Absolutely not. Most grocery stores have like 50,000 food items in them. Mm-hmm. And most people put on average the same 70 items in their basket when they do major shopping on a weekly basis. Yeah. We're just wired to just repeat and repeat and repeat because it's easy. The brain knows the spaghetti sauce I like is right there on that shelf. I'm going to grab that. For me to look at something else on a higher or lower shelf and start reading labels and everything, that's effort that my brain does not put value on, and it wants to skip right by it.
It wants to conserve energy. That's one of the things that it actually does. So, this is the logical thing, and it's not even about willpower. It's your brain. It just kind of like wants to play tricks on you. You think you're in control, like the soul part of you.
Oh yeah, no. Our brains are like Homer Simpson, like the bare minimum, just to get up and breathe. That's all I want to do.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
That's why, people get stuck watching TV. I was training a client today, and she's active, and she was saying to me about how, she'll always ask me about a couple of different things, always about food and supplements. But the other thing she asks me about is like, how do I stop doing this or that? And she all of a sudden now has this addiction to Facebook. She doesn't even really have her own Facebook page. Now she's spending like 2 hours down the rabbit hole on YouTube. And she's like, how do I stop that? And I said, don't go on YouTube. I like, don't go on Facebook anymore. If you don't need to go on there, don't do it. She's like, oh yeah. It's like our brain just gets in there, and then
you have to just reframe. I mean, how many successful, recovering alcoholics spend their time in the bar?
Exactly.
It's just you got don't buy the Oreos and you won't eat them. Exactly. How they come in there. Yeah. Well, I know we're kind of getting towards the end of the hour period, so let's dive into some food a little bit so people can feel like they have something concrete to kind of go away with.
Love to.
We're coming into the holiday season now. Weather's starting to get cooler. People are wanting those warmer, more hearty meals and stuff. And look at the holidays coming up, and this is typically the time of year when people kind of fall off of the track that they've been on, trying to, whether it's lose weight or just eat healthier or whatnot. And the first thing I want people to go home with is that don't be so hard on yourself. Mm-hmm. Do not beat yourself up if you fall off the rails or fall off the wagon or whatever you want to call it. It's not about whether you fall off or not. It's about how fast you get back on. So exactly. when you fall and you fail, when it's your first attempt in learning, you just begin again.
Exactly.
You stop and you just begin again. And it's a good analogy, being that Thanksgiving is around the corner, because the issue that I see in general with what the American population is going through right now, with this skyrocketing diabetes and just heart disease and obesity and all these chronic illnesses and Alzheimer's, is we have too much food at our disposal right now.
Yes.
Never before in history has mankind, ever had this much food at our disposal 24 hours a day, as much as we want, delivered to our door through DoorDash or Instacart, through right away whenever you wanted. Our brain is not designed for this. It's really not, Julianne. It's designed to have to go out and hunt and find food and forage for food. I mean, remember, until about 10,000 years ago, humans ate what they could find. This was before like agriculture, and so they hunted, they foraged for food. I don't know about you, but I would have a tough time finding 3 square meals out in the woods right now. That would be really hard to do, And so, so our brain evolved this chemical called ghrelin, which is what hunger is, to push us to go find food all the time, because we had to spend that much time in the pursuit of food to even get enough calories for us to survive. Now that we don't have to do that anymore. We can walk into the grocery store. We can order, DoorDash and Instacart. We can have food delivered to us. There's taco trucks. Our cabinets are full of food, non-perishable things. Our refrigerators and freezers are full of food that if we actually stop shopping right now, most of us can eat probably for the next month. So just pay attention to how much you're actually eating throughout the day. Like how much you're eating. I mean, decide what's on your plate. Just how much are you eating? How much are you eating between meals?
Yeah.
Are you snacking? Are you grazing all throughout the day? Are you eating dessert every day? Yeah. Are you having Thanksgiving on a daily basis? Because that's what a lot of us are doing, and we're feeling the effects of it it's showing in the population.
It is.
If you go back and look at 1950s, go back and look at old pictures of, just Americans in the 50s.
Yeah.
It's a complete different look than what you see walking around on the streets today. And it's not because people are lazy or they don't have any drive or they don't care. It's just because there's way more food for us available now in super concentrated forms of calories that has never been before. Remember, I worked for a food manufacturer, and I learned early on, I used to go to food shows, and they're like these natural food shows, and it was like Disneyland for me. But what I learned quickly was it doesn't matter if it's Whole Foods or Grocery Outlet or Food Max. It's a business, and it's about a bottom line, and it's there to make money. It's not there to make you healthy.
That's true.
So you have to take control of your food, try to spend a little more time cooking your own food, and watch how much of it you're eating. The reason why that matters is because the more food you eat, the more your insulin drives up.
Mm-hmm.
And insulin is a hormone that actually is what you survive on. Like if you don't have insulin in your body can't bring nutrients into the cells, and you're not going to thrive. That's why type 1 diabetics who have the inability to make insulin have to take exogenous insulin, or they will not survive.
Exactly.
But every time we eat, and particularly the processed carbohydrates. So these are things that are made with grains that have been milled down to a flour. So think of like your breads and your cookies and your pasta and, your rice, potatoes, the simple starches that are really hard to stop eating.
Yes.
There's a reason why they're hard to stop eating. If you think about it, we have governors, like a limiting factor on how much like meat we'll eat.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, I mean, I know there's some people out there that can just eat a pound of steak and be like, I want more. But that's not the majority of people. Even myself, I'll be eating some type of a protein. I'll be like, that's enough. I don't really want any more. And the same with fat. Fat, you're like, that's just too rich. I don't want any more of that. But we can eat carbohydrate till the cows come home, because our brain turns off the signal of satiety when there's carbohydrate around. The reason it does that is because it evolved over time for humans to find sources of glucose, carbohydrate, that they can store as fat to get them through the winter period.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you think about it, in our grocery store, there's bananas every day, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's only 1 bushel of bananas that grows on a tree per year. So when it was time for the fruit to bear on the tree, that one time a year, the one time the apples were blooming or the one time the peaches were there, our brain wanted us to eat as much of that as humanly possible so we can store it as fat and get through the lean winter months.
Exactly.
And it does so by allowing you to just eat carbohydrates as much as you want. Think about this. And we have Thanksgiving coming up, and you're going to be able to test this out. Okay, Thanksgiving is a big meal in general, right? Okay, you're sitting down, you're with the family or whatever, and you got this big meal, and it's usually more food than you're used to eating anyway. That's why people usually get tired after eating a Thanksgiving meal. It's not because of tryptophan and turkey. It's because you probably just ate twice as much as you normally would. And all your blood supply is going to your stomach to digest that stuff. But 30 minutes later, after you've eaten, you've stuffed yourself, you couldn't take another bite. What happens? Here comes the pie.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you look at it and you go, I think I got some room left. And you take the first bite of that, and all of a sudden you're hungry again.
Mm-hmm.
Because your brain thinks that famine is around the corner. So you have to kind of know these things about yourself so you can make conscious decisions about, okay, I'm not going to eat as much food as I think I need right now. I'm going to stop early and find out how far I can go. So you kind of like play a game with it.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of start people in like starting to try fasting and playing around with, the length of time between when they're eating and when they're not eating.
Yes.
Because if weight loss is somebody's goal, the bottom line is you have to tap into the energy you have on board for your body to reduce fat. Fat is nothing but a gas tank. That's all it is. It's a gas tank. And so if you go to the gas station every time you get down to 3/4 of a tank, then your gas is always going to be full.
Mm-hmm.
You have to spend some time in a fasting period, and that just means the period between eating, long enough for your body to still need energy but not get it from the food that you have coming in.
Exactly.
So pay attention particularly to how much you're eating throughout the day, how much of that is a processed carbohydrate, things that were baked in the oven, or in a pasta form kind of thing. All the stuff that we love, right? There's a reason why we love that.
Guilty.
Yeah. And focus on, eating lots of plants.
Yes.
Lots of plant material, lots of fiber. lots of the colors in the plants. I like, you know, people come to me with all kinds of requests. Andy, I want to be a vegan, or I'm a vegan and I want to get healthy, or you know, I want to learn the paleo diet, or whatever it may be. I like to tell people, okay, I'm going to teach you how to become a vegan that eats meat. So I really want the diet to be plant centric and have a lot of plants in it, because that's what has all the cofactors and the minerals that we're not getting when we eat, you know, the standard American diet, the SAD diet, you know, and that's going to help, you know, process all of the fats and the proteins and build your body up, and not turn on these mechanisms that create an environment where, you know, cancer can thrive and heart disease and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, low hanging fruit is just pay attention to how much you're eating throughout the day. Maybe try skipping a meal or two. Is it gonna suck? It probably will, because you're not used to that.
Yeah.
Your brain thinks, if I don't eat, I'm gonna die.
Which we're not.
Which we're not. The longest fast I've done was 7 days, I think.
Oh, I did a juice cleanse for 4 weeks, but that was about as fast as, or it's not a fast, but
yeah, I mean,
definitely.
that's not easy by any measure, though. But I mean, it was, you know, I was taking my vitals the whole time and watching my blood sugar. My blood sugar dropped to a certain point and it just stayed there. And it was like, I'm not eating anything. How is my blood sugar at a good, healthy level? But it would stay there because your body knows what to do. Yeah. We just haven't let it do its job.
Exactly. Well, we have to wrap up because we're at the top of the hour, but this number right here, there we go. If you want to reach out to Andy, that is his phone number as well. And I have put up his site as well. So, Andy, I just want to say thank you again for joining us today. And you and I have to get together and talk again, because I just love your knowledge and I really appreciate you being here. And I'm sure everybody else does too.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Julianne. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you soon. All right. I never want it to end, I swear. And I just love hearing what he has to say. And the way that he can put the information in a way that's easy for everyone to understand, priceless. So until next time, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on Monday.